Welcome to Adventure. Joining us today is Joie Roberts. Joie is managing partner at AMZ Insiders and also happens to have built a 7-figure Amazon brand in 12 months. Her passion is helping people learn to sell on Amazon. So welcome, Joie. I can't wait to dig in and discover all of your secrets.
Thanks, Jeanette. Yes, same. I'm so excited to chat today.
So before we take a deep dive into the Amazon space, I wanted to ask you a few questions just to get to know you a little bit first. We're going to do a little bit of a warm-up. I have 10 questions. I'm going to ask 3 of them, but they're going to be dealer's choice. So pick a number between 1 and 10.
All right, let's go with number 1.
Number 1, okay.
Does anyone ever pick number 1? I feel like they wouldn't.
No, normally people pick the numbers in the center. So this could be a new one. What's a lesson that you've had to learn over and over again?
My year of building from 0 to $1 million in 12 months, there were a lot of lessons. And the lesson I learned over and over 5 times was how to manage inventory during supply and demand issues that I had, because I ran out of inventory 5 times. And this was 2021. So it was a very tough year for supply and demand, especially getting products overseas, China. But man, yeah, I learned a hard lesson in that. But I'm proud to say since 2021, I have not run out of inventory.
So it took 5 times. Why do you think that was so challenging?
Supply and demand was tough and my products were heavy, so I could not put them on air freight. I had to wait for shipments to come in. And the specific products that I was selling, 80% of my store was making the most, 20% of my store was making the most money for me. So I had to bank on those top products. So I couldn't just switch and try to boost up my other products because those were my top sellers. So I had to figure out when my supplier would say, oh, it'll take 2 months. No, it didn't take 2 months. It would take like 4 or 5, maybe 6 months.
Yeah.
And so that was what the original cause was. And plus, I am really strong at marketing. Like I have a marketing background and I would market and run SEO and be really confident and proud. But then on the other side of it, I don't know if it was like I didn't really believe I was going to be selling that many units, but I wouldn't have enough units in stock to keep up.
A little bit cautiously on the ordering side.
Yes, I think so. Because that's where you have to write big checks for inventory and it's scary. And marketing is small little increments of money.
You're right. You're right. But also taking that into account, you're talking about a 12-month time frame. That's not a lot of time to learn the cycle of supply and demand for a product. So I think you're putting a little bit of undue pressure on yourself.
Thank you. Yeah, and building slower is what I do now. Like I don't zoom from 0 to $1 million in 12 months right now with my new brand. So building slower, it's much more pragmatic to have the build slower to achieve it strategy. And then there's not so much like strain on the cash flow.
Well, and you could say that's a lesson that you learned as well over the 12-month sprint.
Lots about forecasting for sure.
Okay, so you have 2 more questions in our warm-up questions. Pick another number between 1 and 10 that's not number 1.
All right, let's go with number 5.
All right, number 5. What's a goal that you're glad you gave up on?
That's interesting. Yeah, sometimes you have to cut quickly. Let me see if I can grab this one thing and show you what it is. Great question. I keep this stroller strap that I created in 2017. And this was a passion product, my first product I ever launched on Amazon. And I had big hopes and dreams for this. I had a little baby at the time, my son, and I took really fabulous photos. I did what everybody does without really knowing what I was doing to sell on Amazon. Long story short, I gave up on this probably 6 weeks into selling it on Amazon. And I am glad that I dropped this product and decided, pull my inventory, this isn't going to work. 1, because I'd only invested, several $100s, not thousands yet into it. I learned that it was not the right product for me to sell very fast. So if you're going to fail, you got to fail fast. So I failed really quickly on this. I have like 100 of these still in my garage, but I have them everywhere. I have them almost on every desk. I keep them in a backpack because it reminds me of a chance I took that I failed at, but I learned that the opportunity for selling on Amazon is there when you know how to do it properly and when you have the right product for you to sell. This could be a product somebody else wants to sell, but it was just not the right product for me.
Well, we're going to get into all of that. I mean, you're like every word out of your mouth is generating about 100 questions. So we'll get to all of that later. But, I appreciate your transparency. I think a lot of people, especially with, the advent of TikTok and, Instagram Reels, everybody thinks that anybody can sell on Amazon with $100 in their pocket and make $1 million in a week. And
Right.
so to have you as a guest saying you're, a 7-figure seller, but to be super transparent and say, that wasn't my first rodeo. Like I had some, I rode the donkey before I rode the thoroughbred kind of thing.
Yes.
Okay, last warm-up question. Any number, not 1 in 5.
Let's do 10.
All right, 10. What's a well, this is a little bit similar, but maybe not. What's a disappointing experience that now feels like a blessing?
Yes. Gosh, there's so many through like career and life. And I would say in my corporate world, like when I was climbing the corporate ladder, and like I was so good at my corporate jobs and I loved them. And my last corporate job I was running the marketing and sales team probably for 5 years. And there was just a lot of transitions happening. And it was this gut feeling that it was time for me to leave and start my own business and I needed to go. But man, it felt so awful at the time. It was a huge blessing, one, to just go through that experience of going off on my own, betting on myself, depending on myself. But it took a long time for me I'd been in the corporate world over a decade, maybe longer, 15 years, something like that. And so it just seemed like such a big loss to leave this corporate world, the safety net of being in a corporate job. But it was definitely a blessing. I have a lot more respect now for people running big corporations than I did when I was part of the team.
Yeah.
And I was a great employee and I was very respectful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you think you have more of an overarching feeling of you felt like obviously the fear aspect of it kind of going out on your own, but did you feel more that you were letting other people down or that
all of it. I thought I was so important and such a big part of the company. And so there was that aspect. But the loss for me is really being part of an organization that I really did love and having a team that I built and walking away from accomplishments. And Jeanette, you might feel this too. It also struck me that I was a woman. I think I was 34 at the time. And I was a woman climbing the corporate ladder. I mean, I did everything right. I went to college. I got a job at NBC News. Like I worked in really big companies. I worked for Callaway Golf. I worked with Getty Images. And I felt this pride being a woman in tech climbing the corporate ladder. And I owed it to other women to pave the way. Yeah. So that was weighing on me too. I'm like, wait, I'm supposed to be like this, Well,
you are though. You have transitioned all of that. And that's awesome that you said that because, and we're going to talk about your podcast in a little bit, but you created and launched a podcast, Fearless Sellers, which is focused on women in the Amazon space. And I feel like you are bringing all of that forward, mentorship and sisterhood and all of those things. So
good. Yes, that's still my goal. And I was like, I can find other ways to do this creatively on my own. And I don't feel like I'm alone. Like I have a great, beautiful network in this e-commerce world.
So now that we've warmed everybody up and we all know everything there is to know about Joie Roberts, we were actually introduced by your business partner, Jamie. So I have to ask, what are some of the benefits and challenges of having a business partner?
Yes, great question. The best thing about having a business partner, and I would say mine and Jamie's partnership, is we both have strengths that complement each other. We do not have the same strengths. I've learned a ton from him. He is a 9-figure seller. He was actually my selling mentor through my journey. And so I looked up to him for that. I think when we decided to partner, it was obvious like we weren't really going to overlap in our skills.
So you
And
knew that going in, you were super aware of what each other's strengths were before you
yeah,
sort of entered into this partnership. That's very smart.
I think you should work with people that you trust and that you like, that you're not going to try to compete for the same task. Right? I mean, there's times where we have to be like, do you want to do it? Do you want me to do it? But very rarely, like we kind of understand whose role that falls under.
Yeah.
And so an accountability, I think, is great for having a partner because now it's like, I don't want to let myself down, but I certainly don't want to let Jamie down and everybody else who works with us, right? Like we have a team at AMZ Insiders too. So that is the benefit. I think ups and downs to having partners. I've had other partnerships in the past that just kind of run its course. And then you start to grow the business. And it's like, okay, we're not on the same page. So things are really easy when there's no money. But when there is money, people change.
Really? That's interesting. I would have thought it would have been the opposite.
Yeah. Well, when you're starting out, I think it might be different if you have the money and then the money
Goes
is
away.
goes away or mismanaged or something. But I haven't experienced that. But I've experienced starting from zero, not with Jamie, with a partner before. And then things were fine. We were both excited and pushing forward. And
Mhm.
then when there's money in there, it's like, uh-oh, wait a minute. We have different ideas of how this money should be spent.
So give me an example. For example, somebody wants to grow the business and somebody else just wants to sort of take it out or
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, or you see different ways to grow the business. Um, Mine, so I always say with e-commerce products, Amazon, your manufacturer is your business partner, right? Because it's like that's 50% of your business is like the product and where you're getting it
how
manufactured.
dependent are you on that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a big deal to have a
Mhm.
good relationship with your manufacturer. And when you want to make changes to how things are manufactured, where they're manufactured, timing, supply, it becomes really tricky. And it's not like you're talking about, 500 products. You're talking about mass amounts of products that you're going to change and reorganize everything. And that is where you really see mindset of where the business could go and should go,
Mhm.
and it can kind of be broken into like a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. And some people are comfortable the way things are and
Mhm.
want to put more money in their pocket. And some growth mindsets want to build the business bigger and bigger. And I mean, I can't say which is right, but for me, it's a lesson in like choose all your partners wisely and make sure your contracts give you an out.
Yeah. And you're right. There is no right or wrong answer. I think it's more a matter of these are the questions that you should be asking somebody before you enter into that partnership to make sure that you're both aligned on whether it be a growth strategy or something else.
Right, exactly. Yeah, just make sure you're aligned. What happens if somebody decides they don't want to work in the company anymore? You should have those conversations. They're weird conversations to have when you're all excited to start a business together, but they're
It is
important.
just like asking for a prenup, right?
Yes,
Like this is super awkward, but in case we don't work out, who
yeah.
gets the lake house?
Who gets what? Yeah.
Right, exactly. Well, you recently shared an Instagram post talking about how you learn about paid advertising through your roles in marketing, and you
Mhm.
were super transparent and learning from your mistakes. So, what's the most common, in your opinion? What's the most common mistake a new Amazon seller makes and can avoid by learning from you?
So if we're sticking to advertising, I have been talking about Amazon ads a lot on Instagram. One, there's intimidation to set up their campaigns. And I think there's a lot of hesitation because they feel like they're going to do it wrong. And I see sellers want to lean on what Amazon is suggesting and the bids that Amazon is suggesting and not what they think it is and what they've learned possibly from me or in the AMZ Insiders
Mhm.
course or even from like BidX, just any content. Amazon suggestions are great, running auto campaigns are great, but there's just so much more to do and take advantage of in your launch period, because the launch period of a product is so important, because
Absolutely.
Amazon is looking to see like, hey, are you serious? Like, are you a serious seller? Are you going to make this product a winner for us?
Yeah, and I think probably a huge fear, especially of a new seller, is overspending. So in particular, your post was talking about, using that budget cap button. And so I think just educating yourself on what opportunities there are, taking advantage of those, but also putting in sort of those speed rails for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Being fearful of the budget, not sure where you should spend your money is also, and I know, yeah, it feels like, spending a few $1,000s on advertising at first feels like a lot because you're not getting the return yet. But it's like you have to spend to get the return.
Right. So super smart advice. And in addition to being a total badass Amazon seller, now I'm going to have to hit the not appropriate for children button when I upload this.
Yes, you
So
will.
you're a total badass Amazon seller and fitness junkie. You're also the creator and host of the Fearless Seller podcast. Again, like I said before, it focuses on women of Amazon. Do you feel like you're in a male-dominated industry, specifically the tech and e-commerce worlds? Can you talk to us a little bit about what it's like to be a woman in this landscape? How do you find a good work-life balance and juggle business and motherhood and all of those things that these men don't have to deal with?
Exactly. I have always worked in tech and been very comfortable at the table with men and women, as long as I felt that we all had a shared goal. But through my career, I have definitely noticed that I am in the minority of women sitting at the table. And I've had big fancy offices at my corporate job, and I was the only woman with an office. That has always been apparent to me. I'm a small woman too, and I'm assertive, but I've been called aggressive. And I
Well,
feel like, wait,
age-old argument that men and women have been having since the dawn of time. Men are assertive and women are aggressive when using the same language.
exactly. And so that is kind of what like sticks out to me. But I will say, as I've gone out on my own and built, I'm not in that corporate setting where somebody else is picking the men, the women
Mhm.
ratio. I tend to seek out women more in the tech area. So I would say my bubble of network of who I talk to on the regular is more women. And then I have the men too, right? Like I will say AMZ Insiders is pretty much all men except me and our VA. But otherwise it is all men.
Mhm.
That's fine. Would I like to hire more women? Sure, but I just want to hire people with the right skills. So it's not on my mind as much, I think, as it used to be, because I am also working hard to pull up women. So it's like, let's build our own community. Like, where are the ladies? Let's find them.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that changes as you get older. I think it's sort of built into our DNA, a little bit of competitiveness when we're young.
Yeah.
Um, but I think as we get older, we realize as women how important, and it has certainly proven itself to me over and over again, our sisterhood. My sisters, not biological sisters, but I have been able to count on through thick and thin, just lifting each other up, which I think is phenomenal. I'm like you. In my previous life before I entered this world, I was in the music industry, and that is definitely a male dominated industry. But interestingly, when we started really looking at things, all of the positive changes that were happening in it and all of the thought leaders in this space were all women. And so I think it
I
is
love
really
that.
important for us to have these sort of conversations. And, I love men. Don't get me wrong. This is not some sort of sexist rant
Right.
like
Right.
that. But I do think it is a little bit different. And I think it's important to have these sort of conversations and maybe shine that spotlight on women in this space a little bit more.
Yeah,
So
I like that. I like that a lot. So in the music industry, that's quite a change too. What was the change like going from music into this e-commerce landscape?
well, it was a little bit like this. It was all over the place. But I feel like I fit here. Same sort of skills. I was doing concert production. So it was a lot of coordinating, project management style things. And, all of those sort of soft skills are very transferable to what I do now. I miss it for sure. It's a little bit different, but I'm super happy where I'm at. So
Good. Well, congrats on all your success. So for the balance of work life, mom life, my workouts, friends, family, work, yeah, I think I'm still trying to figure that out.
yeah, just started naming them off. You're like, gosh, I really do. How am I doing all of this?
I know, and family, and I have siblings, and I do have friends outside of the tech world, but you know, I am trying to balance and figure it all out. But one thing that I always think about is the saying, like, and this can apply to everything, but I'm going to talk about like the saying, but it's like the dishes can wait. And I give myself a lot of grace. And it's not really about doing dishes. I hate doing dishes. I think everybody does. But it's more about like, there are things that can just wait. Like if I don't overextend myself, I do hire help. Like I have cleaners, I have my groceries delivered. I do what I can to make life less stressful and more enjoyable because we're here to have fun. And I really like to have fun. And my kind of fun might be different than others. Like, yeah, I live in Austin. I like to go out to the lake and do that stuff. But I also find working fun. Like doing these podcasts are fun. Connecting with people re-energizes me. So I try to think of things like break my week up so that I know there are things that are fun on different fun levels. Social fun, work fun.
Different fun levels. I like that.
Yeah. They're like, she's a blast.
No, I agree. I think it's really important, but they say the key to happiness is finding something that you love and doing that as your job. So it sounds like you've done a little bit of that, but also prioritizing yourself, because in order to be the best business partner we can be, in order to be the best mother we can be or partner we can be, we need that recharge and refresh time and energy so that we can do those things and be our best at all of those other things. So
Yeah, and I'm very selfish when it comes to my workouts. I don't miss the workout. I get very frustrated if something interferes with my workout, and I plan my life around working out. That doesn't mean I have to get up at 5 every morning and go to the gym, but if I need to do that, I will do that so that I can have a better day and set myself up for success. So
I mean, self-awareness is great and it's so important.
yeah, and I think that's important for everybody. And it's like, I always put like my wheel of focus, like what I have going on in my life. I put fitness and working out in there because it's not just like, oh, okay, I went to the gym. It is a big hobby for me and it's something I'm extremely interested in.
Mhm.
So I had to recognize that about myself. Like this is more than just like, oh, okay, I worked out 4 times this
So I
week.
can pasta
Check
for
the box.
Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm sure everybody has that thing. It might not be going to the gym, but there's the 4 burner theory, how like if you're burning all of your gas on work, that you're not going to have enough gas left for family, friends, and yourself.
Yes. That's a great point.
Try to balance all of those things. So getting back to Amazon, they just announced a new discount section where you can buy products directly from China. So how will this impact current Amazon sellers? And, what are your thoughts on this move by Amazon?
I think it's great to know what Amazon is doing, why they're doing this direct buy from China to, some people have said, oh, it's a play on Temu because Temu has the same thing. It's like, great. Okay. I will always applaud Amazon for being innovative and taking risks and calculated risks. So there's that part for Amazon. But as a seller, it's just know that be aware of what it is and work harder, work smarter, make your products better so they stand apart from any competitor, whether the competitor is in China or it is in the US or coming from wherever. Like that's our job as sellers, is to follow Amazon's customer centric methods.
Mhm.
And you have to put out better products. And you put out a better product and you market it better and present your storefront better, you don't have to worry about anything going on overseas. And you don't even have to race to the bottom for price. Like there is plenty of space if you have a good product that people are going to want to give you a little extra money for it.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's really smart on Amazon to use this brand that they've built up. I should say the brand trust that they've built up over the years, because that's really what's going to propel them forward, I think a lot of people want these products, but when you get on Temu, you're like, I'm not sure what I'm going to get.
I've had good and bad experiences buying from Temu, and like I wouldn't be opposed even to buying the stuff in Amazon section just to check it out.
Yeah, I'm sure. I think that a lot of people will be rushing there for sure. So as at the date of this recording, Amazon just announced a little bit ago their Prime Day dates for the year. So what are your top three things a seller can do to prepare for Prime Day to make record-breaking sales?
Yeah, so July 16th and 17th is coming. So first, you need to right now be checking all your keywords. And one good tip that I haven't even released anywhere yet that I'm thinking about releasing is look at your competitors' keyword wins from last Prime Day. Pull up competitor data. You can use whatever software you're using. I use Helium 10, doesn't matter, but just figure out how to see the keywords that worked for your competitors and then add those into your campaigns. That's one. My second one we touched on a little earlier is focus on your best sellers that you have enough inventory for. And have the confidence to know no matter what, your sales are going to be boosted because there is just an influx of shopping in general. Amazon is bringing so many more people who want to shop and they're making this big deal. So just know your sales are going to pop. So if you have inventory that is low, don't run your ad spend on those. Put them on other products. And if you have best sellers, get your inventory as much in there as you can that you're comfortable with. And then the next is you need to worry about your conversion rate for your listing. Like your listing has to be ready. This isn't a time for testing. Like this is go time. No more A/B testing your hero images. Like July, the rest of July, you need to be fully ready and confident that your listing is going to convert. Check your conversion rate. It's in your brand analytics. Hopefully you're all brand registered listening to this. If you're not, get brand registered. You still have time before July 16th to start.
There you go.
Get in there. Yeah, I mean, those are some of my tips, and I drop tips all the time on my social media too.
Yeah, we'll definitely have links to all of your socials in our show notes. But it's funny you kept bringing up low inventory. So clearly you have learned your inventory lesson. It is burned into your brain now. You're like, make sure you have enough inventory if you're going to advertise that product.
Yeah, and I used to cut it close even with my new products. I'm like, oh, a month of inventory is fine. And then Amazon introduced low inventory fees. And it's per unit. There's like, I think it's around 30 cents or something per unit. But don't quote me on that. I don't work for Amazon's fee structure. But it did also remind me that I like to have a minimum of 2 months inventory on hand. And I wasn't like that before. I was like living on the edge. Luckily, my top sellers I do get in the US, so I can have stuff filled a lot faster.
Yeah.
Not all of my stuff, but my top sellers.
That's all great advice. So hopefully everybody's going to listen to this and hop on over into their Seller Central account and check all of that. So as we're coming sort of to the end of the interview, and I know that you've exited a brand, I think it's just a really good alignment. Let's talk about how does a seller know when it's time to exit their brand?
Several factors can play into it. The best advice I'd like to give sellers is you want to exit when you're still going up and to the right, when sales are still climbing, they're still high. Buyers don't want to see a decline in sales. They want to see it still going up. They want to see that you're still putting in a lot of effort. And something that I did right is I left a lot of runway. There were opportunities for my products to launch in other countries, and I was teeing it up for the launches and also on other platforms. And I spent a lot of time making sure that Amazon.com in the US was blowing it out of the water, and it was growing rapidly. And I had really good relationships so that I could do everything I could in the US and leave it for the buyer to expand globally and then also to other platforms.
That is great advice. Yeah, leave that room for growth. Okay, That is our final official question, but I'm going to ask you, are there any final thoughts that you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Yeah, I think just keep pushing forward and ride the waves of selling. Not every day is a win, and not every month is a win, honestly, but you just keep pushing forward and you will get to the success. Give yourself a lot of grace, but make data-driven strategic decisions. I hate to say it, but selling on Amazon is not always a gut feeling. Like you have to dig into analytics and know your numbers.
And there is so much available. There is a ton of data.
So much.
So just comprehending that data and, translating it into something actionable for yourself as a seller is really important. So because we're the adventure podcast, we ask every guest, what has been the best adventure of your life to date?
When I was in college, which was a long time ago, I did semester at sea. So I lived on a ship for, I think it was like 5, 6 months, and I traveled the world. I went to I think you go to 12 different countries, and it was the best adventure, best learning life experience of my life. So get out there and travel.
I'm going to do that right now.
Yes, me too.
Well, what was your favorite country out of those?
I loved Malaysia, and Cuba was interesting. Cuba, you can't even really go to now. And India, gosh, it's hard to pick. I went to Kenya.
Yeah. You really did go all over the place.
Yeah, you go all around the world. Yeah, I mean, so many of them. I always try to think where do I want to go back to? China was at the time was interesting. It's changed a lot. So yeah, I just think getting out and exploring the whole world is the best adventures.
Yeah, you seem pretty adventurous, so I'm not going to be surprised if I hear that you're jumping out of a plane next week or something.
I've done that many times, probably 6, 7 times. It's fun.
I think every guest we've had on this podcast has jumped out of an airplane. I'm like, what is with you people? Always people jump out of airplanes. Joie, I can't thank you enough for being our guest today on Adventure. It was a pure joy. I know people are going to learn a ton from you. So anybody that's listening, definitely check out the show notes. We're going to have Joie's contact info, all of her social media handles so that you can follow her there. Make sure you listen to her Fearless Sellers podcast, and then go ahead and subscribe to Adventure for more thought-provoking interviews in the future. Thanks, Joie.
Thanks, Jeanette. Bye.
Take care.